in your Blue Sky account, you claim to be and I quote, I took this as a quote, the type of sicko who can actually explain the MLS budget and roster rules, which is the type of sicko we just love on this show, because that is just right up our alley. There were also a ton of roster rules that were
Mhm.
just changed within the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 days. Yeah, 4 days with, cash for players trade, shifted windows, all this sort of stuff. So we're going to try and cover as much of that as we can today. But I think it'd be silly not to start with the biggest one, something people have been talking about for a long time, and that's the cash for players system. Your thoughts on it, good, bad, ugly? Give me the rundown of what you're thinking right now.
Yeah, definitely the longest term, the one that's going to have the greatest impact on the league, in my opinion, out of the ones that just came through. So big change, in my opinion. I think it's something that's good for the league. Something you have to be a little bit careful with, but overall, it's going to keep more good players within the league. We're seeing that right now. The rumors surrounding Lucho Acosta, as well as Evander. Apparently, Dallas just put a $12 million bid in for Evander. So him staying in the league is a lot better than him going to somewhere in Brazil, Argentina, potentially a lower league back in Europe. So that's
Mhm.
good news. Obviously, I think you want to kind of protect a little bit against becoming something akin to Liga MX, where they just probably inflate the prices of guys that are already in the league. You want to continue to bring in new players to the league, especially as we're growing, bringing in the 30th team this year. You don't want to dilute the talent, and you also, want to maintain some level of parity. But as you look at, long term how players are valued within the league, I think there's probably a little undervaluation on a number of guys within the league, just because there's no real way for them to be moved within the league for really accurate market value. And this isn't going to solve all that. It's kind of a two in, two out system. So you can at most bring in two players for cash, sell two players for cash. And then the normal, roster rules around DPs, U22s are going to protect against, really that market exploding and going crazy. But overall, I think it's a huge move. It's long overdue. I think I read that they've been working on this for 6 years, which is just like MLS. But all in all, yeah, I'm really excited about this one.
But yeah, so we had talked about that a little bit on the DMs that we had, where that was always the biggest fear was having this system, and we saw what it did with Liga MX, guys that you could move on and show that you are a league that will progress and move talent on. Instead, you end up taking players who aren't really worth the money that you are spending for them, throwing them up, doubling their value, and then ending up stagnating your development pipeline. And I think that's a huge fear. I don't think it's something that people are like who are coming up with like negatives against this are wrong about. But I do definitely agree that it's something that we've needed because for too long we've let players leave the league in general for way less than what we probably could have kept them in the league for. And it has, I don't know if I want to say it's hurt our growth necessarily, but it definitely hasn't helped it, right? If we were able to keep guys, one of the guys that pops into my mind is Lucas Zelarayan, right? Had to move him on in Columbus to get Diego Rossi in to get the 3DP rule. Yes, he went out for a lot of money to Middle Eastern club. I believe it was Saudi Arabia, if I remember correctly. Could somebody have picked him up and kept him in the league and kept his level in the league and made that a benchmark instead of letting him leave and trying to restart from there? That was always something that was in my mind when something like this came up. Could we take those sorts of players and keep them around? Not necessarily the TAM level players and then raise them up and put $2 extra million on their valuation and then hurt it that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think, one of the nice things too is this can help, I think, with younger players as well, moving them in through U22. We're kind of seeing that with what Montreal does. Obviously, they've made a number of moves to move guys, younger guys throughout the league, maybe aren't getting the playing time they'd like, moving them into a U22 spot, so giving them a raise. Now they can go out and actually spend cash on that. Will a club like Montreal? Kind of doubt it. I kind of still think they're going to go with the GAN trades. But this allows them to do that. But yeah, 100% right. I mean, perfect example of a League MX transaction I think you want to guard against is, Jesus Orozco moving from Chivas to Cruz Azul for $12 million. Good player, 22-year-old center back, you know, really good at breaking lines. Is he worth $12 million at 22? Probably not. And if you pay $12 million for him, the odds of him ever going to Europe are probably pretty slim. And I don't think you want to be, kind of blocking guys into MLS, even if you're going to give them, $12 million transfer fee and 3 million. You still want to give them that opportunity to progress to Europe. But again, some of the natural rules that are still in place in MLS, I think will prevent some of that from happening. So you prefer it to be guys like we're talking about, Evander, maybe even Chicho Arango when he left and came back, stuff like that to keep those types of players where it's maybe not the perfect fit as a DP in their system, but they're either a DP for somebody else or they're a better fit in a different system. So yeah, I think it's an exciting move for sure.
Yeah, and that's a perfect example, right? I think one of the reasons we're able to attract so much talent from South America and younger guys from Europe is because we then are able to sell them on, oh, look at what Miguel Almiron did, right? Came from South America playing for the Premier League, right? If you take that away by then passing them around the league, raising their valuation every time, and then being
Mhm.
like, okay, I want to recap my investment, you're going to need $15 million to get this. Quite frankly, let's just say he's a bang average center back. I've never seen him play, but let's just say he's a bang average center back. That takes away the draw from your league, right? And
Yep.
then you end up paying more money to get those players in to convince them to come and then stay here, and it'll throw a lot of things off. So they got to be really intelligent with it, which I agree. But